So, hi, how are you? How are you? It's really good to have you on.
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited.
I'm as well. So, so basically, we're going to be talking about mental health today. And personally, 2029, so, sorry, 2019, 2020, the lockdown period, that was essentially where I feel like the phrase mental health had like a major bloom or boom. Let me call it that. And that was when I started hearing that phrase more frequently. And so it's kind of like, why do I care about mental health? Why is it important?
So, essentially, when we ask why is mental health important, I understand how it seems like we just started hearing it during COVID, after COVID and the pandemic, and everybody was just mental health, mental health, mental health. So, funny how I got very interested in mental health like a year before the pandemic happened, actually. By a year before the pandemic. So I started doing research about it and I became aware of it because it was affecting you. Like it's something that we all have, like our health of our minds. So it's something every single human being can relate to. So I got interested in this and then obviously there's a global pandemic and this obviously has different like varying effects on people's lives. So that's when people became conscious of it because that's such a major traumatic event that then has an impact on people's lives. But why is it important? So we can just I think how I'm going to do it is I'm going to tie it to something that we can all understand a bit easily just because we've been raised to understand it. So your physical health, right, your body, when we're talking about our body, why is taking care of your body and your like why is that important? Why is being healthy, being physically fit, why are those things important? Because when you don't take care of it, it can lead to death, it can lead to impairment of, activities, your skills, you're not able to do certain things well, you're constantly on medication for certain things, you can't live, it impairs the quality of your life essentially. So when your physical health is not in peak condition, it impairs the quality of your life. So when we talk about mental health and bring it to mental health, it's the very same thing. Because what is mental health? Mental health is the wellness of your mind and it affects how you think, how you feel, and how you act, right? So this thing is affecting how when people say things to you, how do you perceive it? How do you choose to react to it, right? How you choose to relate with human beings and the world around you, your cognitive, behavioral, everything it affects it. So how can it not be important? Because this is the key thing. Like this particular thing, if this isn't right, every other thing is in disarray. So if something has so much or such an effect on your behavior and your quality of life and the decisions you make, how can it not be important? So I think we're just recognizing now how important it is. And obviously, with times, you always have like a buzzword at the moment. So, yes, that's what's hot right now. But it's always been a thing, will forever be a thing because it's something that affects every single individual.
Yeah, yeah, it was a traumatic experience to be honest.
Yeah.
For many people, if not everyone. You can't say obviously you're not allowed to say that it was something that was a good thing, to happen, but like you can say that there was now more, pointing towards okay, look at this thing, which is your mental health, which you can,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So there are many people that I believe have are in a certain school of thought, which is that anxiety and stress, are not exactly such terrible things that people make it out to be, right? There are people that sort of believe that they are more of pointers, okay, to things that need changing within, our environment or, the current situation that we're in. Did you get me? So I'd like to know your thoughts on that. Like anxiety and stress, are they really such bad things?
So that's the thing. So both school of thoughts are actually correct, right? It's
Okay.
almost like a spectrum and there's two ends to it. So let's start with stress. So for stress, it's not necessarily a bad thing because as individuals, we all experience some stress or the other almost every day. If you live in Nigeria, everyday standard, you actually have some stress or the other, right? But stress is a normal thing, it's a normal experience. However, like I said, it's a spectrum, so it can become bad. So when stress is consistent, when stress is chronic, right, and like unchecked and untreated or unregulated, it then becomes a horrible thing. It then becomes a problem. It then becomes such a bad thing. Why? Because chronic stress, right? Stress constantly being exacerbated, it has effects. Like it has so many effects, not just on, and as we know, your mental health affects your physical health, right? So when you're stressed, when you're going through mental stress consistently, you have issues like that affect your heart and gut, like digestive issues. So you see when people like have tummy aches because they're worrying. I don't know if you noticed, like kids, when kids are worried about something or stressed, they have a tummy ache, right? There's stress ulcers. There's people that have like heart attacks just because of stress, right? So that affects that. So when it's chronic, it is a major mental health illness that needs to be checked. So another thing we have is the next question or the next part of it is anxiety. So we touched on stress, right? So with anxiety, anxiousness is normal, all right? It's a normal feeling. It's something that every individual would experience. However, so that's why I said the school of thought of, oh, it's just a regular thing is fine, right? Anxiety, being anxious is normal. But when it moves to anxiety attacks, or you have like chronic anxiety, then it becomes a thing because those things can impair your function, right? And it can also cause physical illnesses with your digestive system, with your processing everything. It can affect your physical health. However, even when it comes to just mental health, it impairs judgment, it impairs functionality because symptoms of anxiety, you have like increased heart rate, you're breathing heavily, you're feeling tired. For some people, they can't even carry out the activity that they want to. For example, people that drive, there's some people that have major anxiety when they drive. So it reduces their reactionary time because it takes time for them to process things because they're in their head, they're overthinking it, and that can cause accidents at the end of the day. So for that person now, they cannot actually drive or maneuver themselves on the road. Why? Because of this chronic anxiety. So it definitely affects the quality of your life. I just gave an example of a person that's driving, right? Or a person that tries to drive and suffers from anxiety, right? If you're anxious about driving, it's one thing. But if you suffer from actual anxiety disorder, which is a disorder, or you experience chronic anxiety or panic attacks and anxiety attacks, when you're driving, you're overthinking everything. You can't make decisions swiftly enough. It impairs your judgment. You're in your head. You're breathing heavily. So much is happening, and you cannot react properly on the road. You can't coordinate yourself properly on the road, and then it can then lead to an accident. And understanding that a person with anxiety or suffering from anxiety disorder will then find it difficult to drive, which is such a major skill, like life skill. Like you need to be able to get around, but then you're not able to do those things because of this illness. So you see, when I say like it can impair the quality of one's life. So anxiousness on its own may not necessarily be a bad thing, but anxiety disorder can now be a more difficult thing to manage.
Okay. So anxiousness and having anxiety, like what is the difference then? Is it anxiousness just being sustained for a prolonged time, or?
So yeah, it's being sustained. It's also being like having more extreme symptoms or reactions. So if you're anxious, right, you feel butterflies in your tummy, you're a bit like stressed, you're double checking things, you're like, oh my god, I'm going on a date, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm okay, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Right? It usually passes momentarily. Where with anxiety, it's constant over things that need it, like things that don't need it, things that do need it. Okay, you're going to the mall, right? You're going to see people. That doesn't necessarily seem like such a crazy event, right? But for someone with anxiety, it's such a big deal, right? Where with anxiousness, it's on like certain special occasions or like a certain thing must be triggering it. But with anxiety, there doesn't need to be a trigger,
So
right? Like that is easily identifiable because there's always a trigger, but not something that would actually just stand out to the like someone else that isn't suffering from anxiety.
oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I like that you've brought up triggers, because that sort of segues into my next question, which is the cause of mental health issues. Like, what exactly are we to look out for, right? What causes mental health issues?
So there's a variety of things that cause mental health issues. Some we have identified, some are still unknown, right? So they will put things like, oh, etc., etc. Nobody really knows, but it can happen, right? But there's like 5 to 6 major things, right? There's others, but the 5 to 6 fundamental things are usually I don't know if you've ever been to therapy or how people are always like, oh, therapists always try to tie things to your childhood. Oh,
Okay.
it must be something. Yeah. So childhood trauma is a major thing, right? Childhood abuse, childhood neglect, things that happened in the formative years of an individual's life, they strongly affect how a person thinks, feels, or acts and how they process things, right? Because those are your formative years. These things make up how you view the world and how you think you should react to things or treat matters. So there's that. Right? So you have issues like discrimination, stigma, racism. So things like that, when you experience things like that, people constantly treating a person like a subhuman or like they don't deserve to be in a certain space, it tends to take a toll on a person's mental health because it then affects how you view yourself or how you carry yourself, right? So there's things like that. So your experiences, your lived experiences amongst people have a major effect on your mental health. So like I said, when you are viewed like as a subhuman, it can be a discriminatory thing. It could also just be based on like classism, right? Or a social disadvantage. So maybe this person is in poverty, maybe this person is in debt, maybe this person is disabled. Anything that's like a minority group, just being in a minority group where you're treated poorly or your rights are not given to you, or like you're just treated like you don't deserve to be on earth like anyone else, that can cause major mental health challenges, right? Bereavement, losing someone, grief, major mental health challenges as well. Especially when you don't go through the healing process properly, and healing is not like a day's job. So it's like it's a journey, it's an everyday journey. So that is also something as well. Stress, like we spoke about, severe or long-term stress, major mental health issues. Having long-term physical health conditions. So if a person is dealing with cancer, for instance, and they've been battling it for a long period of time, it can affect their mental health. So I want to highlight that mental health and physical health, they work hand in hand. Your mental health affects your physical health, and your physical health to have the overall well-being of an individual and mental, right? Another cause of stress, or rather another cause of mental health challenges, is that some people are actually born hereditary. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Some people inherit mental health challenges. So there are some people that are like predisposed to certain behavioral disorders or psychotic disorders just because maybe someone else in their family had it, things like that. So it's the same way some people are predisposed to diabetes or high blood pressure just based on like their relatives. So there's that, and there's some things here that fall under trauma, but I just like to say like like traumatic stress disorder, which is a major, like when you've experienced some form of major trauma in life. Maybe you've gone to war, maybe I don't know,
Yeah.
because bereavement, racism, discrimination, all these things fall under trauma as well. But then there's also just like major incidences like a war or a pandemic,
Hmm.
right? That can cause, mental health challenges. So those are some of the causes of mental health challenges.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you've mentioned something that it's kind of new to me because I actually didn't quite think of the fact that it could be passed down. So like it could be,
Yeah,
yes. So well, I think you can sort of group everything you've said into three sort of major factors, if I'm not mistaken, which is I'd say biological, maybe environmental, and then psychological. So
exactly.
yeah, so I think my next question would be, what do you think would be the most potent um, factor affecting mental health? Do you think it's biological? Do you think it's more of psychological or environmental, or what do you think? What do you think about that?
So I do think they all have a role to play, but I would say that I think the top contender would be more likely environmental.
Okay.
But most therapists and what most people will tell you is you can't, it also tells you can't change your environment, you can't change the things happening around you, you can't change the externals, you can only change how you react to the externals, how you manage it,
Mhm.
right? So if psychologically, if you're just already not in the best space mentally, if you're not taking care of that thing, you're not prepared to handle whatever it is environmentally that is affecting you, all these different causes, right? So I think they're all interwoven in one way or the other. But I would say that biology is probably like it takes a back seat because a lot of people are not genetically predisposed, but then they suffer from mental health illnesses. It's just like a select few that have these, are genetically predisposed to having mental health illnesses. Plus,
Yeah.
so they have that, and then they still struggle with like the environmental issues we struggle with, the
Yeah.
general things they still have to deal with those things as well. So yeah,
Yeah. So,
I wouldn't say there's a number one. I think they're all interwoven.
oh, okay. Biological. I would have thought that you know, the biological factors they would be more.
Will be the foremost.
Yes, sort of. In a sense, like in a situation where someone, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, someone that
Mhm.
has psychosis. What would you say psychosis is a mental illness? That's a mental illness?
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
yeah,
Almost like a state. It's not like an illness, but yeah.
okay. So let's say
No,
there's
but carry on. I understand what you're trying to say.
so let's say like whatever like the more the larger the parent of that would be, right?
Hmm.
So let's say someone had that because someone in his family had that. I would think that you cannot really do anything in that situation to change. Whereas if it was more psychological or environmental, I feel like you have more room or more flexibility sort of to do something like
Okay, okay. So let me go back to the question. What was the question again? What is the most?
that. What's the most potent factor affecting mental health?
Okay, so when we say potent, because I interpreted it as the most critical thing, which is what affects most people, right?
Yeah, okay.
When we talk about most, yeah, so that's how I interpreted it, and I answered based on that. But when we say most potent, I'm now starting to understand it as like what is the when they say poison is potent,
Yeah.
it's working. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so harder to work with or manage. Maybe biological would then come into play because you're already predisposed to these things. So yes, maybe then when it's like, okay, what's the most difficult to handle? What's the most difficult to manage? It'll probably be biological factors. Yeah,
Okay.
because that's when you have things like, because not every illness is going to be passed on, like, or can be passed on biologically.
Yeah.
The ones that usually can be are usually more like heavy illnesses. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense then. Um, so my next question, because a lot of what we do here at Roots at this point in time is it's more or less tended towards entrepreneurs, freelancers, creatives, right? So a question such as this, which I'm going to ask, let's just go ahead and ask. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they make decisions like 99% of the time, right? They're always making decisions, always thinking. And so would you say that constantly being in this state, having to, make decisions, especially, usually under stress, I assume, right? Would you say that that could potentially be a cause for alarm in terms of mental health? Could that like flare up into something more serious?
So I would say that it definitely can. So one, so yes, if we don't invest in our resilience and our ability to bounce back, right? Say, for instance, you make a decision that doesn't necessarily go well for your business or it impacts your business negatively. Being able to bounce back from that and say, okay, yeah, but we need to keep making decisions, we need to keep pushing, that's resilience. Now, someone made an example to me that I think is the best thing ever. you know, when you have a towel, right, and you use it to wipe your body every day, right? You're using this towel, you're using this towel. That towel is like your mind. When you experience adversity, you're wiping, you're wiping, you're wiping. So now, you know how you dry your towel? You either hang it somewhere, you put it in a heater. You have to air this towel. That's investing in your mental health, the self-care, the mindfulness techniques, everything that you do to cater to your mental health is drying that towel so that it can soak up the water and clean up and manage every other thing that it needs to, which is your mind is the towel, remember. It can do everything that it needs to when you need to. Now, what happens when you don't dry a towel and you keep using it and you keep using it and you never air it out, you never let it dry? There will be a point that you will use the towel will get you wet.
Yeah.
Who is been drying it will get you wet, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with your mind. If you don't take care of your mental health, if you're not airing out your towel, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not investing in your mental health and being intentional about your mental health and wellness, your mind will not be there for you. Like, it won't be able to handle certain realities that come, like, from being an entrepreneur where things go bad. Like, how many percent? I think it's 90 something percent of startups like fail in their first 5 years. So those years are critical. You're doing so much, right? You're trying to freelance. You don't know, because you know, with a salary job, with a 9 to 5, you know that worst case 31st your salary will come in, right? But with an entrepreneur, you're probably paying people salaries and you're like, if we don't actually make this amount, some people will not eat food. Even me, I won't eat, right? So you have to think about things like that. And that's a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of high stakes involved. So you need to invest in your mental wellness so that you're able to handle the pressure, handle the highs and lows and everything that comes with being an entrepreneur. Do you understand? So that's what I would say about that. And I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. So all of that being said, would you say that entrepreneurs are more would you say that entrepreneurs are more susceptible to mental health issues?
So I wouldn't say they're more susceptible to mental health issues. I do think it can be a bit challenging, but that's not trying to create a hierarchy to to the stress that people face, right? But then the thing is, yes, there's some jobs and some roles that are like at high stakes and they're very stressful for sure. But then it's also important, like the way the person perceives it is also important. Let me give you an example. We always say that someone that drowns in 1 feet of water and someone that drowns in 10 feet of water, it doesn't matter, because the person has drowned. Right. So it's the same thing. Like, okay, if you think, oh, as an entrepreneur, like, okay, this is where all the mental health illness is, this, we're the ones fighting through. And somebody that's a cleaner or someone that's doing a more like low pressure job that's like, okay, what's the worst that can even happen? But it's overwhelming for the person and it's such a struggle for the person. And then there could be someone that's an entrepreneur, but it doesn't stress them, it doesn't faze them, it doesn't. You see, so it's not an apples to apples situation. You can't really compare it like, oh, okay, it's entrepreneurship, more tasking than a 9 to 5. There's some people working in some types of organizations that see what that entire setting is doing to their mental health.
Yeah.
You can't write home about it. It's not the best, right? So I think, again, it's all about, we all experience different forms of stress and different forms of challenges. It's all about how we are able to handle it, how we're able to prepare ourselves to take it on and bounce back from it, most importantly.
I like that. And yeah, what you said is absolutely spot on, because there are people that they're working in 9 to 5, but the environment there's a lot of pressure, right? And, you know, it's nothing to compare with being an entrepreneur. In that case, is nothing to compare with the sort of environment that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Practicing mindfulness. So I was going to ask you if you have any mindfulness techniques that people can implement.
So essentially, when we talk about mindfulness, it's actually like the word implies, just being mindful of your environment, especially when like so many things are happening. It's like touching grass. Essentially, touching grass could actually be a form of mindfulness.
Okay.
It's focusing on what is in your immediate environment, so it centers you. So you're looking at, what can I see, what is something distinctive that I can see, what is something that I can touch, what is something that I can feel. This is more important for people that struggle with anxiety, which is like the most common, like one of the most common mental health challenges in the world. So just instead of being in your head, you tend to like go far. I remember I had an anxiety attack one day, and it was like my heart was beating. It was, how in movies where it's like doom doom doom
Mm.
doom, and the room was spinning and everything. And I was like, okay, you know what? I need to focus on one thing. Right? I'm not trying to look at everything and why it's swelling. I'm going to look at one thing. I'm going to touch something to make sure that, okay, I'm still in this room. I'm grounded. Right? So
Yeah.
that's essentially what mindfulness is, like centering yourself and bringing yourself back to the present of where you are, to say that, okay, no, 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 nothing, the world isn't spinning, all these things aren't happening, I'm here, I'm centered. But I think it could also be like meditation in some form, where like you just calm down and you're like hyper focused on one thing and you're just dwelling on this particular thing. For Christians like myself, it could be a scripture, like you meditate on a scripture. For other people, it could be certain quotes. I know that when you go to the spa, or well, my spa for your massage, they give you these like they're like tallies, but they have different things. So some is like peace, love, joy, and they'll tell you to pick one, and then they'll tell you that, okay, during your massage session, you should meditate on this particular thing, just zone and focus on that particular thing and how you want the thing to be displayed in your life, right? So it comes in different forms. I would also just like to add, though, that aside mindfulness, so I'd like to add that, like, aside mindfulness, there's other techniques that people can practice, and things that I would particularly encourage, like intentional gratitude. Being grateful, it has done so much for me. Honestly, it has actually been the best thing, because it's easy, I think, just by our nature, it's easy for us to be very hyper focused on all the things that have gone wrong and all the bad things and all the disadvantages and all the cons and
Mm.
the demerits of this particular thing. Like, okay, yeah, no, this is a problem, this is a problem, especially for your work, right? You're like, oh, why is this business not going through? Oh, why is my boss this? Oh, why is this that? But I try to be very grateful, even about the little things, right? So no matter how bad a job is, it's paying you, right? You
Yeah.
can eat.
Mm-hmm.
As much as like this job could be the worst, you are feeding. There's people that they don't even have jobs. Like, yes, to complain about toxicity, but they don't even have a place to go and get the toxic. And I'm sure that they would choose to try and manage that toxicity over starving,
100%. Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's not undermining like the negativity or toxicity or all of that. It's just to say that it is important for us to be grateful for, and at every point in time there is always something to be grateful for. There's always something to be grateful for. I speak to so many people, and you see different people going through different challenges. Oh, this person did this to me. Oh, my father did this, my family member did this, and it's like there's always something to be grateful for, right? You have family drama, but at least you have a family,
Mm.
right? So there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to be grateful for. So yeah, I used to be very stressed out about my 9 to 5, because I say it takes so much time. It's not say 9 to 5, I could be online 1 a.m.
Mm.
every time, like it's so constant. Like, but then I was like, because it had like I work across different hours, it also makes my work a bit flexible.
Yeah.
So that is also something to be grateful for. That yes, it can take a lot of hours and it can be very stressful, but it also means my job is flexible,
Mm.
which is something I've grown to appreciate. So I always find, like I run, for instance, and when I'm running, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I have a job that allows me to run,
Mm.
right? There's people that can't even do any of that, right? But
True.
I'm grateful that I'm able to sneak in these little things into my life that like make me happy, no matter how blue everything else is. So intentional gratitude is a critical thing. Journaling is something I would also advise. When you're having big emotions, it may be hard, especially for people that can't confront their emotions, people that find it hard to understand how they feel or even remember it. It's like everything is just washing in and out. It's good to journal. It also helps to see your progression, your growth, understand how understand your patterns, understand how certain things work for you, because the best thing for your mental health is understanding yourself, right? So you know how with your physical health, people are like, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. It's because they've been able to see that every time I take ice cream, I go to the toilet. If I take cheese, I'm going to have a tummy ache. You're able to establish a pattern to say, okay, so I'm going to avoid certain things because this triggers this. With mental health, because it's a lot of times it happens fast, it's constant, you may not necessarily notice it. So journaling helps you establish patterns, know yourself better, learn from yourself and say that, okay, yes, this is something that this particular person, whenever I'm around them, I will cry. Okay. This being said, understanding this, okay, maybe reduce my, interactions with this person, or maybe prepare myself so this person doesn't have such a huge impact on my emotions, right? So yeah, that's it. Breathing exercises as well, very important. It's one of the mindfulness techniques. Just taking a deep breath, centering yourself, very important. So yeah, those are some techniques that I would advise.
Yeah, I'll definitely be using one or two of those. There's one that I find myself using. I don't know, like, if you have a name for it, you can just say. But like, what I do is I just try to name the emotion that I'm feeling at that particular moment. Right. I feel like I find that it helps me, to stay grounded and not just spiral basically inside my head. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How about
Yeah.
work-life balance? Do you think that helps in maintaining a good mental health? Has it helped
For
you?
sure. Let me tell you. I recently started a series because I create content, and I recently started a series called Funambulisms. And essentially, a funambulist is a tightrope walker. All right. And I said, I'm a tightrope walker that's also juggling, because there's just so many other things I'm doing. Right.
Yeah.
So, and there's no way to do it without trying to balance. It's a balancing act. However, I would say that first, there's really no such thing as work-life balance. It's important, but there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's work-life integration,
Okay.
but there's never going to be balance,
Balance.
because some days it's going to be 70-30, some days it's going to be 60-40. It's rarely ever, I won't say never, but it's rarely ever 50-50. That today I woke up, I was able to dedicate enough time to my spiritual life, dedicate enough time to my 9 to 5 to get all the things I wanted to get done, and dedicate enough time to work on my side hustle, dedicate enough time to go work out, enough time to cook for my family and be there, hang out with my friends. We have 24 hours in the day.
Sure.
It will never be balanced 50-50, right? And I also want to emphasize this quote that someone said, that it's not that you can't have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. Right? So work-life balance is it's not a failure if you're not able to get all these things done every day, touch on all these different points, and it's also a pyramid. It's like prioritization, right? You have to determine that, okay, this is number one priority, so every day, all day, I have to choose this one has to come first. For some people like me, that's spiritual, that one has to come first every day. You have to try and make that one come first every day. Now with other things, you're like, okay, my 9 to 5. Now sometimes your 9 to 5 work spills into your Saturdays, but then you may have to choose that, but I need to focus on my side business today, I need to do this today. So you know what, my 9 to 5 may suffer if I don't work on this thing on this Saturday, but guess what? I may have to do that. So that takes priority today. During the week, the 9 to 5 will take priority, and integrating it, right? That, okay, I'm supposed to close at 5. I may not close at 5. I may close at 9. But if I'm able to, at that 9 p.m., go out with my friends, get good dinner, spend some time, I've been able to do something that works for me. So I've integrated it quite nicely. Right. Yeah. So it's not like, and some days you will wake up, all you will do is work and you sleep, nothing else. Yeah. You will not even eat. That has happened to me.
True.
That will happen. Right. But then the other days where you go out and all you do is play with your friends, it kind of just evens out at the end of the day. So it definitely is important, because like I said, investing in your friendships, and relationships, and doing these things that make you happy, whether it's exercising, all these different things, right? Your spiritual life, all those things, they're what give you the energy, right? They're the drying of the towel. They're the things that give you the energy to go ahead and then achieve all the things you want to do, be productive in your work life, in your work, achieve stuff you want to do on the entrepreneurship side or your freelancing side, your private practice, all those things, right? So it definitely works hand in hand.
Mm.
So yeah, work-life balance, very important.
I like what you pointed out, work-life integration, not work-life balance, because now it actually
Yeah,
peace of mind, sort of, in my own life,
yeah,
because I'm always trying to beat myself up, like, I have to have this balance, but like, it kind of, it
yeah.
makes, like, being, a robust thing rather than, something that's just individualized, right?
It's not a singular day thing. You have to look at it holistically, right? Let me give an example. I'm currently doing my MBA, but when I was leaving school, when I left uni, and like my final year, I think I got about 11, 12 certifications, Coursera that time. I was graduating from school, so I was doing as much as I could. I was constantly studying. I had written my CIPM at the time, so I was chattered. I was doing my final year project. So it was like core development of myself.
Yeah.
When I left school and I started working for like the first 2 years, I didn't take one certification. Like I didn't read one book end to end that wasn't work related. And I kept telling myself, I felt so bad, like, oh my God, I'm not developing myself personally. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was beating myself up about it. But then now, and at the time I had a business. That business has had to take a back seat. I'm prioritizing education for now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm able to take even some more courses, develop myself. So at different points in time, some things will have to be priority. You'd have to say that, okay, for now, if in those 2, 3 years I was like, oh my God, it's all over, I have no work-life balance because I'm not developing myself and educating myself, that process of even beating yourself up about it is causing you stress over things you cannot change. Because at the end of the day, if I could do it, I would do it, but I can't. I
Mhm.
actually couldn't at that point in time, right? But now the time has come, I'm doing those things, I'm trying to develop myself even while juggling it with work.
Mm.
Right. So I think there's also a time you can, like I said earlier, you can have everything, but just not all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. Finally, I don't know. Do you have any advice that you would be willing to give anybody that's coping with mental health issues, or anyone that's trying to improve their mental health generally?
So I would say, one, speak up,
Okay.
right? A problem, I think a lot of us have a challenge where we have expectations of friends and family that, oh, I'm going through this, they should notice, they should see, which maybe they should, right? We're not excusing that.
Mhm.
But life is happening to everybody. The same way you're going through your things, they are going through their things. And people cannot help a problem that they don't know about. With physical ailments, it's easy. If somebody is shivering, they have a fever, you know. If they're not eating, you know, you're like, okay, something is going on here. What's going on? You check their temperature. Okay. They're losing weight really fast. Okay, is everything okay? They're losing their hair. They have yellow eyes. Like, you can tell when a person is physically ill. But with mental health, yeah, sometimes it will eventually affect your physical health. But for the most part, you actually don't know, especially in the early stages, except this person tells you for a lot of illnesses, except this person actually tells you, you don't know. So I would say that it's important that we speak up
Mm.
without the fear of, and so we all have a responsibility to make the world a safe space for people to speak up, because there's a reason why people don't speak up. So I would say for people suffering with this challenge, speak up. For people that are in the environment, right, that may not necessarily be suffering from this challenge, or maybe they are,
Yeah.
I think we have a responsibility to be understanding, to be caring, to be accommodating. We always say, so at the in mental health community, people always say something that, oh, it's all we support mental health until it becomes an inconvenience to you, right? So, for instance, Your friend is going through, like, maybe, maybe the person is depressed, and yeah, catering to them is fine until maybe it's like your birthday, or you're having like your wedding. You're not able to support your be there for you on your big day. I support your mental health until it becomes a major inconvenience to me, and then it's like, oh, okay, I don't know about that, right? um it's, oh, okay, oh, I understand you have anxiety, but then maybe this friend is supposed to come and pick you up from the airport, and then they have a panic attack on the road, and then they can't come anymore.
Mm.
And obviously this is an inconvenience to you. At that point, you're not caring about the anxiety because it's an inconvenience to you. It's not to say that we automatically give a clean pass to anyone if once they call the mental health card. That's not the case, right? But we're just saying, be a bit more accommodating. And I use accommodating because it may not be convenient. It may not be the easiest thing to do. It may not work out for you the way you planned it. It may affect your own plans and how you envision things, right? But it's an illness. If somebody was supposed to show up for your wedding and they had like a horrible fever or something happened, right? Or if somebody was supposed to come pick you from the airport and they had a heart attack on the road, you'd be understanding of it. You'd be like, oh, okay, fair enough. Oh my God, let's run to the hospital. Let's go and help this person. But this person has a panic attack on the road and cannot make it. You're not as understanding. Do you understand? So I think we need to extend the same grace that we would, and we need to take mental health as seriously as we take physical health. It's just as important, if not more. So we
Right.
need to take it as important as a community, and that will reflect in how we support one another, how we're there for one another, how we accommodate one another,
Yeah.
right? And finally, invest in your mental health. We say that if you want to know what a person values, is where their money is going.
Mm.
Follow the money. Invest in your mental health.
Yeah.
For me, or for certain people now, for instance, what are the things that help with your mental health? Okay, you run. So you will see that, okay, this person is exercising, they're investing in the running equipment, they're doing the things that, because that is important to them.
Yeah.
It's their mental health that's important. Oh, are you paying for therapy? Right, because your therapy is important. So you see, oh, a good portion of your money is going into therapy because it's important for you. Mental health resources, important. Buying journals, important. So you're going to spend your money, it will reflect.
Yeah.
Also, your time. What are you spending your time doing? Are you spending your time doing things that are filling you up or taking from you? Right? Just investing your mental health, time-wise, money-wise. Being intentional about it as well. Your friendship circle, the people that you surround yourself with on an almost daily basis, what are their views on mental health? Are they people that accommodate mental health challenges? Are they people that you can comfortably speak up to without fear of stigmatization, trivialization, etc., when it comes to your mental health? Right? That's investing in your mental health, intentionally pruning your friendship circle, financially investing your time, being mindful of your mental health. Right? So those are the tips I would give, advice that I would give. Speak up. Let's all be accommodating and kind to one another, and invest in your mental health.
Yeah. So generally, for me, I think for me, I now understand better the importance of mental health for myself, right, personally, and so I think that's what everyone needs to do. Right? I think they need to see it as something that's very important, because people don't place a lot of focus on mental health issues, right, or mental health in general. And I think that's like the roots of many of these things, basically. But Naya, it was really, really, really good to have you. And I'll just add, for anybody that's listening, is she was really professional. Like when I asked when I asked if she could, from when I asked if she could join to today when we finally recorded, everything was prompt, right? And I just want to thank you again, for showing up for Ruth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited for an opportunity to speak on mental health and just spread the awareness a bit more. And maybe even if there's just one person that listens and is able to take something from this and it impacts their lives and the quality of their lives or the quality of someone else's lives and how they are able to be there for family or friends, it means everything. That's the fulfillment of purpose there. So I'm very excited
Yeah,
about being
I
here.
can
Thank you for
literally
having me.
I can literally see it in your eyes. I can, yeah, like your eyes literally light up anytime you're talking about it. So it's very, very, very nice. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. Enjoy the
Thank
rest.
you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your.
You too. Bye bye.
Take care.